Chris Bebel here again. I'm a former federal prosecutor and I'm a former SEC attorney. At this juncture, I'm in private practice and I represent investors who have been deceived and defrauded by stockbrokers. So what are we going to talk about today? Well, in a nutshell, we're going to talk about the extra burdens and responsibilities stockbrokers must shoulder while dealing with elderly investors. Now, to understand this, let's take a step back and look at things from a big picture perspective. In that regard, we must keep in mind that brokers uniformly have an obligation to tailor and customize their recommendations so as to fit the precise attributes and characteristics of the customer in question. And while dealing with elderly customers, brokers have to go a step further. Foremost among the extra objectives is the need to take liquidity into account. In other words, investors who are elderly, who are retired, cannot be put in a position where large segments of their savings are placed in illiquid, non-tradable securities. And that makes sense. That's because elderly customers may need access to large portions of their savings on an expedited basis. They may quickly need to dip into their savings so as to pay for medical expenses or whatever the situation is. But all too often, stockbrokers are controlled by commissions, and they pressure and push elderly investors into buying illiquid notes that have a 3 or 4 or 5 year maturity, or they push them into buying restricted securities that are sold in connection with a private offering. And when that happens, these brokers face liability. Generally speaking, brokers must be reluctant to place elderly investors into illiquid securities. Now, if you are caring for elderly investors who have been placed into illiquid securities, don't be afraid to ask questions. Find out the rationale. Try to understand the broker's thought process. And if you still have questions, reach out to a securities fraud attorney. If you don't know a securities fraud attorney, give me a call, 903-843-5678, or just go to my website, chrisbebel.com. But keep this in mind. Please understand that we cannot accept all the cases that are presented to us. We would be overwhelmed if we did that. So we carefully sort through the various cases that are presented to us. We pick and choose, in other words, and we go from there. But I'll do my best to gauge the attributes of your case if you give me a call and provide me with an overview. Thanks.